Okay, now, this is a problem that I've actually done with the other class, but I want to do it again with you guys, because sometimes the way a book recommends it to be done isn't necessarily the best way to do it. What does a book know? Books is written by teachers. You don't know how long the teacher's been teaching. The teacher may not be any good. Who knows? But I would rather you do it in a way that makes more sense to you. Is that fair? Fair or not? Okay. So it says Alfredo sent 2/5 of his potato crop to market last week. This week he sent 2/3 of the remainder. So what do we got? We have all we're given is 2/5, and that's last week. And we have 2/3 this week, right? That's all we're given. And that's all you need to write down. That's all you're given. Is there anything we can do about that so far? Yes or no? No. Okay. It says, what fraction of his crop has now gone to market? What fraction of his crop has now gone to market? In other words, after he sends this amount to market, what fraction, now hold your answers for a second, what fraction of the crop actually went to market? Right? So he sent 2/5 of his crop, correct? And then whatever was left over, he sent 2/3 of that. Well, the other class had a, what's the problem? Low battery? Okay. The other class had a problem with solving for A. And I think if I recall correctly, you guys had a similar problem. Now, you might have looked at it since then, and maybe it makes a little bit more sense to you, but you don't necessarily, they're asking for that first, but I think there's an easier way to do it. Okay, I'm going to hook this up to the battery up to the computer so you don't have to worry about it dying. Okay, so let's look at the other question first and then go back to this question. Okay, let's go the other question first and then go back to this. Okay. It says, if he has 860 kilograms remaining, what was the original weight or mass of the crop? It's actually not weight, it's mass, to be technical. So what would you say how that would be? Well, what fraction of the remaining crop does 860 represent? One what?
1/5.
1/5?
Yeah.
Well, how do you know that? Because you might have worked out the problem. But how do you know, given what you're given, how do you know? Doesn't 860 represent the remainder of the second shipment? What fraction of the remainder was shipped out? 2/3. So what does 860 represent? 1/3, doesn't it? Doesn't 860 represent 1/3? Yes or no?
Yes.
So how would I get the total amount of the remainder? If 860 was remaining after 2/3 of the remaining shipment was sent, and 860 represents the final remainder, how do I get the amount of the remainder after the first shipment? Yes?
We do that
You got to speak loudly, because somehow I think that when you're outside playing with your friends, you're much noisier than that. Are you afraid you're going to offend me or frighten me if you speak loudly? James, what did she say?
She said you should times 860 times 3.
Yeah, 860 times 3, because that represents 1/3, doesn't it? Right? Because I shipped out 2/3 of the remainder, and the remainder after the second shipment is that only 1/3 remains because 2/3 was shipped out. Yes or no? So what is 3 times 860? 860 times 3 is going to be what? 2,580. 2,580. Okay? Yes or no? So that's what is left over. That's what's left over after that. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
So what fraction does that represent after the first shipment? Let me rephrase that. What fraction of the original amount does that represent after the first shipment? That represents 3/5, correct? So how do I get 1/5? How do I get 1/5? 2,580 divided by 3, right? That was times 3. Now divided by 3 equals what? 860. Now, it just so happens that that's also 1/3 of the second shipment, the third of the remainder, correct? After the second shipment, correct? Now, why do I need 1/5? Why do I need 1/5?
To figure out the total.
To figure out the total, because if I know 1/5, I can multiply 1/5 by 5 to get 5/5. So what's 5 times that? What's 5 times that?
4,300.
Times 5 is going to be what? Is this on the thing?
Yes.
This on? Okay. What's the answer?
4,300.
4,300? You sure?
Yes.
You're positive?
Yes.
Absolutely positive.
Yes.
Excellent.
There's
Okay.
another way of doing it.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Yes, correct. So, if he has 860 remaining, what was the original weight of the crop? Well, that's the answer to the original weight, correct? Yes or no? Now, let's go back for a second, okay? Let's go back. And it says, what fraction of his crop has now gone to market? Right? What fraction has now gone to market? And that was after the second shipment. Right? Correct? So 860 was remaining after the second shipment. And now we know 860. So what fraction after the second shipment actually went to market? So 2/3 went to market, and then 2/5 went to market. 2/5 of the original, right, went to market. And then of that remaining, then 2/3 went to market. So what fraction of both trips to market actually went to the market? Yes? 4/5, right? 4/5. Yes or no? How do you know that? Because that's what's left over, and we know that that represents 1/5, right?
Yeah.
We know that that represents 1/5, correct? How else can you determine what fraction that represents? By dividing that by 4,300, right? Got it?
Yeah.
Are you okay with it? Little different, yes? You got to keep your fractions straight, don't you? I think it's easier doing B before A. What do you think?
Yeah.
I agree. We're out. My only fans